It's time for another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and the topic today is Carolina football. It's fitting because I'm actually in the press box at Keene Stadium. Had to sneak up here to get a little bit of work done. Having major Wi-Fi issues at home, so I wanted to use the Ethernet here to upload some stuff. So I'm banging out a few drops now we can run later in the week. So the topic today is Gene Chizik's comments earlier today on Monday over at the practice facility. A couple of us in the media were over there after practice, the Tar Heels' fifth practice in preparation for the Duke's Mayo Bowl, December 27th against West Virginia. So there are a lot of interesting things Gene talked about, and some of those things we'll hit on later in the week. But I think it was a very valuable Q&A session, especially some of the things about some of the freshmen that are going to play in the bowl game. But inevitably, we knew what would come up would be some things about the defense, the job that was done this year, the way the defense sort of tailed off and didn't play well the second half of the season, and his future, whether or not he will be back as defensive coordinator at North Carolina. This is not just a talking point for angry fans. This is something a lot of people have talked about because the defense, in the end, some of the numbers didn't look like there was a ton of progress made. Certainly not with respect to the experience on that side of the ball and the way they started. They actually played pretty well through the first 6 games of the season. In fact, one of the things that I tracked a lot early was their second half defense, because it was very clear that the messaging from staff to players was excellent in game, especially at halftime through the first 5 games of the season, 5.5 games of the season, if you will, because they may have struggled a little bit in the first half with some stuff, but they'd fixed some things. And the defense was very stout in the second half against South Carolina, against Minnesota, against Pittsburgh, against Syracuse, and for the third quarter against Miami. That was the best quarter of the year. The team was as physical and on point in that quarter as any quarter they were all season. And through that third quarter, which comprises 9 second half quarters against Power 5 teams, the defense gave up 13 points. That's 1.4 points a quarter. However, in the 11 third and fourth quarters after that, the rest of the way against Power 5 teams, they gave up 105 points. So clearly, you don't have to dig hard to find areas to point to in which the defense just simply did not play well, didn't do its job. Gene today said that's unacceptable. He described the performance as unacceptable. But he also noted that there were some upgrades. There were some things that improved. And I'm going to hit on a couple of those things too, because I think people are fixated so much on the last few things they saw that the aggregate is ultimately what matters most in college football. And I think it's fair that people understand that, important they understand that, because when Mac and Gene and whoever else sit down and have conversations after the bowl game, and that's going to happen, no decision has been made. Whatever happens will be decided after the bowl game. They're going to look at some of these things, and they're going to recognize some things that maybe angry, bitter, emotional fans don't really see or want to see. And this isn't in defense of Gene. It's just the full picture, because we'll put some other things out there as well. For example, they went from number 129 last season in TFLs to number 55 this year. They went from number 104 in turnovers gained last year to number 22 this year. They went from number 127 in sacks last year to number 45 this year. Some other upgrades, and I pointed out those 3 first because they're dramatic differences. Those are also 3 things that Gene pointed out when we talked to him today. Some of the other things, they went from number 115 in total defense to number 95. Not a huge uptick, but it is an uptick. And by the way, they went into that Miami game, which was a 6th game, ranked 35th defensively. So the drop-off was significant after that. They went from number 115 in passing yards to number 100, small uptick. Not a great one, and being number 100 in passing yards and number 95 in total defense is nothing to boast about. So understand my point here. They went from number 114 in pass efficiency defense to 64. I do think that's a significant gain, and that should be noted in the positive checkbox. And they went from number 101 in scoring defense to number 73. The difference was 30.8 points to 27.1. So it was 3.7 points a game. Not an enormous difference, but a little bit of a difference. Not enormous, but enough to note. So some of the other things about this defense that were problematic, the stat, for example, first downs allowed. They're number 118 in the nation in first downs allowed. That's just not acceptable. They were on the field too much. And when you go back to the last time we saw this team, NC State had the ball for 40 minutes. Now, part of this is the offense. And I think, and we'll get into this more as we climb out of this season and into next season and when we do more stuff on the transfers in the portal. But one of the reasons I think Max Johnson is coming is because he's a game manager. He's only thrown 12 interceptions in his career. His dad was the quintessential game manager, won a Super Bowl as a game manager. They want to manage the game a little bit more, keep the defense off the field a little bit more, and maybe balance out that time of possession as well. And that alone will will move some of these numbers up next year. So I know that will be part of the discussion. That's got to be why Max Johnson's coming in here. That's to help the defense. And since Gene's defense, even with this imbalance of time of possession, still posted some significant upgrades, I think that's going to work in his favor. Now, the other things won't, because it just wasn't a lot better. And given the talent that was on this roster, the aggregate of what the defense did should have been significantly better. So now to Gene's comments Monday when he was asked about his future and asked if he deserved to have another year. He didn't say yes or no. He then went into the whole defense in general. It's unacceptable, but hey, we made some positives. So I asked him if his preference is to be back for next season. And he said, yes, that's his preference. So that there tells me that whatever the discussion that is had sometime after the bowl game against West Virginia, he's going to go in there aimed and armed to discuss why he should return because he wants to return. So if he doesn't, then it tells me that it's probably a decision above him. If he does, then that means he and Mac are very much on the same page, and they believe that enough chipping away was done this year that if they continue to chip at the same rate next year, there will be a dramatic enough difference that with more ball control and a sound running game and an efficient red zone touchdown offense, that they actually have a chance to win a lot of football games. Maybe do it more conventionally instead of just gunslinging a lot and having quick possessions. Because I still think that when, Mac's a stat guy, he likes to look at stats. He likes to look at time of possession. A lot of coaches I've covered never cared about time of possession. They just care about the final score. But Mac is very intricate in all these aspects. He understands one thing kind of touches the next thing, which touches the next thing. And when you're staring at a 40 in the time of possession column for NC State, that's going to make you change some things. So I expect that some of those changes will be made. So if Gene is retained, I think a lot of this will be in the discussions that they have. And also, I think that some of the things that improved are going to be highly noted. So that's something that people need to stick in the back of their mind. And when time comes, whenever a decision comes out, if it is that he stays and he is the defensive coordinator next year, you need to understand a little bit more why. Don't think emotionally, Mac doesn't know what the heck he's doing. What is Mac doing? It's the old boy brigade, whatever the case may be. There'll be a lot more that goes into it. And that's why I wanted to do this drop. That's why I wanted to throw some of those numbers out there. And that's why I think today's interview with Gene was one of the best that some of us in the media have done, because we got a lot of stuff heading into the bowl game, just bowl game exclusively, but also his views on where he stands right now. And when he was asked if he deserves to be back, he said it was a fair question. He's ready for it. The guy was a head coach at Auburn. He can handle a few of us here in Chapel Hill. No problem. And he did. I thought he handled it really well. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in the bowl game. They have a huge opportunity against the number 3 rushing attack in the country. They're going to play 3 freshmen a lot on defense. So we'll see. It turned the tide for Jay Bateman the wrong way. Maybe this turns the tide for Gene Chizik the right way. We will only know sometime at about 9 o'clock on December 27th. If you like this video, go ahead and click like. If you don't like this video, go ahead and click like. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Share this with all your Carolina Tar Heel friends and hit that notification bell so you get updates every time we upload a podcast. I'm AJ, and I'll see you tomorrow.